Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this. You're shopping, you see a price tag, and that's exactly what you pay at the register.
Hmm.
No extra tax added on at the end. Sounds like a dream in most places,
It
right?
really does. I mean, for so many countries, a big chunk of government money comes from, well, taxing what people buy.
Yeah, consumption taxes.
Exactly.
But
That's where you get value-added tax or VAT and sales taxes. They're taxes added onto goods and services, sometimes along the way, sometimes right at the end when you buy something.
absolutely. But today we're digging into the sources you've shared with us, and we're going on a bit of a world tour.
Right.
We're looking at the places that do things well very differently. We're exploring the top 10 countries around the globe with the absolute lowest VAT or sales tax rates, looking ahead to 2025.
So our mission here for this deep dive is really to unpack the key stuff from your material. We want to figure out who these countries are, get a clear idea of why they can have such low rates, and look at the other ways they fund themselves, all based on what's in those sources you sent over.
And get this right off the bat, there's a pattern in the material that's, well, it's pretty surprising.
Oh, yeah.
Every single country in this top 10 list, they share the exact same lowest rate. So yeah, get ready to see where your money goes furthest, tax-wise, across the world.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start the countdown, working our way up based on your sources.
All right, kicking us off at number 10, the Cayman Islands. And the rate noted in the sources, a flat 0%.
Zero. Yep, 0% VAT or sales tax. The sources point out that the Cayman Islands government relies mostly on other ways to get money.
Okay.
Instead of taxing what you buy there, they lean heavily on things like import duties. It's a tax on stuff brought into the country, right?
Right.
And various fees from their financial sector. And your sources mention this system really helps make it a big international finance hub, attracting offshore businesses.
Makes sense. Okay, moving to number 9, another island spot, the Bahamas. Also listed with 0% tax rate.
Yeah, same deal. The Bahamas also skips the VAT or sales tax. According to the material you provided, their main income comes from tourism levies.
Ah, taxes on visitors.
Exactly, taxes on tourists and hotels and things like that, and also property taxes. So while you might not pay sales tax in the shops, the government gets funded by taxing things like hotel stays and owning property there.
Interesting. Okay, let's hop over to the Middle East for number 8, Bahrain. And yep, the sources confirm a rate of 0% again.
Bahrain's another one. It's presented in your material as one of the Gulf nations that right now doesn't have VAT or sales tax. Its economy is described as really thriving on oil, trade, and finance. So that structure, especially relying on energy exports and being a financial center, means the government just doesn't need to tax consumer buying like many other places do.
Gotcha. Number 7, we find Bermuda. Still sticking with that zero tax scheme, 0%.
Bermuda, too, according to your sources, skips VAT and sales tax. Their government funding, as mentioned, comes from things like payroll taxes.
Okay, take it from where?
Yeah, directly from paychecks and customs duties, which, again, are taxes on goods coming in. This setup is highlighted as making it really attractive for offshore insurance and financial services businesses.
All right, heading east now for number 6, Brunei. The material shows a tax rate of, surprise, 0%.
Brunei, yeah. It's a relatively small nation, but also has that 0% VAT sales tax rate. Your sources really emphasize that Brunei's wealth is largely built on its huge oil and gas reserves.
Right, natural resources.
Exactly. That natural resource money is the main funding source for public services, so they don't really need to tax everyday buying for their residents.
Okay, back to the Gulf region for number 5. Kuwait, another country holding strong at 0%.
Kuwait's listed as another member of this 0% club. Your sources state its economy is super heavily reliant on oil exports.
Just like Brunei, then.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It means the government gets a ton of income from selling its oil internationally, which lets them keep a tax system without VAT or sales tax on things bought inside the country.
Okay, coming in at number 4, Oman. Source material confirms 0% VAT and sales tax for 2025.
Oman's economy is also, really propped up by its oil money that helps fund the government without needing a consumption tax. But your sources add something pretty interesting here.
Oh, what's that?
Oman has apparently been thinking about bringing in a VAT sometime in the future.
Ah, okay. A potential shift.
Yeah, and it seems to reflect a strategy maybe to diversify where the government's money comes from, to rely less just on oil, kind of future-proofing for when oil isn't king anymore.
Makes sense. Number 3, another Gulf heavyweight, Qatar, listed with a 0% tax rate.
Qatar's got enormous wealth, mostly from its huge natural gas and oil reserves.
Yeah.
That lets it operate without VAT or sales tax as of 2025. This structure, according to your sources, makes Qatar really appealing for global retail and tourism because the price you see is just the price you pay. No tax surprise.
Yeah, that's definitely appealing. Nearly there. Number 2, Saudi Arabia. Your material lists them with a 0% tax rate for 2025.
Saudi Arabia, yeah, the biggest economy in the Gulf, also relies heavily on oil revenue to fund its government, like the sources mentioned. And that allows it to keep a 0% VAT rate. The sources describe this as a major plus for shopping in the kingdom, Consumers don't have that extra tax hit.
And finally, topping our list at number 1, the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, holding a 0% VAT or sales tax rate for 2025.
The UAE, yeah.
Yeah.
Home to those huge global shopping destinations like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. They use their significant oil wealth, but also strong income from international trade to avoid taxing consumption.
Right.
And this approach is presented in your sources as like a key part of their strategy to pull in tourists, businesses, and residents by keeping those point-of-sale costs low.
Wow. Okay, so taking a step back after running through that list, it's really clear from this deep dive into your sources that the lowest VAT and sales tax rate in the world for 2025 is just 0.
A big around 0.
Yeah. And looking at the countries, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, Bahrain, Bermuda, Brunei, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, you see this really strong pattern, don't you? They're clustered in specific regions.
Absolutely. The Caribbean and the Gulf region are heavily represented.
Mm-hmm.
And the overwhelming theme your sources highlight is how they pull this off. They depend on different kinds of income streams. We saw the reliance on natural resources, oil and gas mainly,
Right.
but also tourism money. Import duties again, taxing stuff coming in, not being bought locally, payroll taxes on income, customs duties, other specific fees. They basically fund their governments using levers other than taxing the act of buying something inside their borders.
Yeah, but it's important to catch that nuance that your sources also point out. Just because there's no VAT or sales tax doesn't mean everything is totally fee-free.
That's a critical point, absolutely.
Yeah.
The sources explicitly say that other charges, like those import duties or maybe service charges, can still apply and affect the final cost, especially for things brought in from outside.
Right. So, like, if you buy a souvenir made right there in the Cayman Islands, okay, no sales tax. But, as your sources note, places like the Caymans and Bermuda use customs duties. So if you order, I don't know, a laptop online from overseas to be delivered there, you might well pay a tax when it crosses the border. The tax burden just gets shifted, doesn't it? From the shop counter to the port, kind of.
Exactly. It's shifted from the point of sale to the point of entry. And we saw that note about potential changes, like Oman may be thinking about VAT. And that's likely not just random. It probably reflects a bigger strategic goal, like the sources suggest, to diversify their economy and government funding away from just oil, relying only on something like oil where prices go up and down.
Yeah, it's risky.
It can be risky, so a consumption tax offers maybe a steadier, homegrown income source.
And just to see the whole picture, the source material also gives some context, mentioning places way at the other end of the scale.
Right, the high tax places.
Yeah, they point to countries with really high VAT rates, like Hungary and Europe, where the rate can hit, 27%?
27%. Comparing that to 0 really shows the huge differences in how governments decide to fund themselves around the world.
And the sources also touch briefly on the U.S. system, which is kind of unique, isn't it? No national VAT.
Right. It's all state-level sales taxes there. The average state tax is around 6.6%. But interestingly, some U.S. states, like Delaware, also have 0% state sales tax. So they're competing on that front domestically, you could say.
So, okay, bring it all together, why? Why do these low or 0 rates exist? What's the point?
Well, your sources seem to point to a few main reasons. One is just making things more affordable, right? Which can boost local spending, make life cheaper. Another reason is to attract international business, maybe talented people, by offering a really friendly tax situation.
And crucially, the sources really hammer home that these rates are often tied directly to how that country's economy is built. It's not just a policy whim.
Exactly. It's often enabled by specific circumstances, maybe huge natural resource wealth, like we saw, or big reliance on trade and finance, or maybe the dynamics of having a smaller population or a very specialized market. They don't have to tax consumption broadly because they've got these other significant ways to bring money in.
It's a really fascinating look at how different economic foundations can lead to totally different tax philosophies, isn't it? Compared to countries that maybe rely heavily on taxing pretty much everyone buying stuff just to keep things running.
It really is a very different model.
Well, that was a genuinely insightful deep dive. We've seen that the world's lowest VAT and sales tax rate is a clear 0%, and it's concentrated in certain areas, all thanks to these alternative ways of funding the government.
Yeah, this exploration hopefully gives you, the listener, a much clearer picture of just how diverse global tax systems are and how economies can support themselves in ways that go way beyond just taxing your shopping basket.
So, as you think about all this, here's maybe a final thought drawn from the source material for you to chew on. If a country boasts zero VAT or sales tax, but maybe hits you with high import duties or other fees, can you really call shopping there tax-free?
Good question.
And how does a nation's reliance on something like, say, drilling for oil fundamentally shape its whole view on taxing its people and businesses, compared to a place that pretty much has to tax every transaction just to pay the bills? Something to think about next time you look at a price tag wherever you are in the world.